Hey folks, welcome to the video and welcome to this cabin in the northwest of Scotland. If you're new here, my name is Johnny. I'm a cabin photographer amongst many other things. And in this video, I'm going to take you through my edit process when I'm on a job like this. So how I can edit the images like the ones that you can see on the screen right now. I'm going to show you through the process from white balance, from geometry correction to, blending multiple exposures. And so if I just hit picked, I'll show you through some of the images that we took. This is the first sort of stuff I was doing, and then as we move on a little bit, you can see there's some nice evening shots. There's ones like this, which I will show you, I'll show you how I captured this as well. And then as we move on a bit further on, we've got some interesting sort of lifestyle stuff, just capturing, the kind of feel of the place as well. So we'll go through all those different things. So the first image that I want to edit is this one here. You can see it full screen. This is a nice clean image. It shows the whole space and it's reasonably well balanced, and then all these lines are nice and straight. That's part me taking the photo and part the edit. So how did I go about taking that photo? This is actually made up of 3 different photos, all the exact same shot, so the tripod hasn't moved, but there's 3 different exposures. So I'm going to select all of those and I hit Control, and I'm going to photo merge, HDR merge. This is going to blend all of those exposures together to give us one image with loads and loads of information in it. It's going to say, are you happy with that? And yet that's fine, so I'm going to hit merge. Now that's going to blend them all together and give us one image with loads and loads of information in it. Okay, so here it is. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go into here, and I'm going to go to the bottom and I'm going to enable lens correction. That will correct the sort of slight lens distortion, which gives us these straight lines here. Now you can see they're not perfectly straight, so I'm going to go to geometry and I'm going to vertical. There we go. That's just made everything perfectly straight. When I'm doing these type of shots, I will do it that way. In a lifestyle shot, I won't always straighten the lines, but when it's one of these big wide shots, I kind of want it to feel perfect and super straight. So now I want to edit this. So I'm going to go up here. I'm just going to pull the highlights all the way down. I don't like to reduce the window too much. I do want there to feel like a natural kind of image. I want people to feel like that they could go to this space. Now that we've got that, we can see that we've got quite a mixture of different colors in here, and I want to try and find ways to simplify this image. There's quite a lot of blue kind of coming in through this window. So what I will do is, in the color here, I'm just going to reduce the blue so it looks more kind of white, that the light is white. That means that with these oranges here, which I might even boost a little bit, that means that we're getting one kind of color rather than a mixture of color temperatures. I kind of broke my own rules here where I normally don't have the lights on, but because these windows are so bright and that there's not much light over this side of the screen, there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of light coming from there, so it's too dark. So that means I've got to have the lights on, which means I'm getting this, awful mix of color temperatures, which if I, pull it up, you can see loads of blue here and loads of orange on this side. So I'm going to do that. Now I'm probably going to want to saturate those a little bit. Again, rough and ready. I'm going to get the brush and I'm just going to paint over this window like this. So all that green stuff there, and I'm probably just going to, I could warm it up a little bit, and then I'm going to saturate and just, make it look nice and green outside. Did I pull those blues back? That's what I want to know. Yeah, there we go. So now, probably looking at just doing the point curve stuff. So this is where I'll lift up the sort of bottom end like that to lift up those shadows. I'll pull that down. I can be quite extreme with this sometimes. So again, lifting up that bit, and then I'm going to soften all the whites to pull it like that. And now, at this point, if I want contrast, I'm going to do it with clarity, I think. What I will probably also do is I'll throw in a linear gradient just over here, like that. That means that I can just balance out those shadows just a little bit. Now it's looking to me to be a little bit sort of black, so I'm just gonna lift up that side there. So that's pretty close. Maybe I just want to actually reduce the highlights on that side. So similarly, linear gradient over here, and I'm gonna pull the highlights down. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. So how does that compare with the other one? Similar. Here you can see there's a little less vibrancy. So if I go to here, I probably got my vibrance boosted. That was probably Lightroom that did that. And I'm going to reduce that a little bit. And that gives us, a nice soft image. I think that reducing that vibrance was kind of the key, really. But now that I've reduced the vibrance, I'm just looking at those oranges, they're looking maybe a little bit kind of pale, so I'm just going to boost those. Okay, so that's that image. If we look at before, you can see that it's not quite straight, and then afterwards, you know, it's softer, it's a wider image. The only thing you have to watch with the clarity in these situations is to see all these little tiny dots. You know, you have to watch that. So if I boost the clarity, you can see that actually the image pops, but these dots, you know, the knots in the wood become really, really distracting. So I'm going to reduce that back down to where it was. And you know, it all looks good. I'd say maybe this is a little bit warm, but other than that, that's great. I'd be happy to send that off. So the next image I'm going to look at is this one here, because this is a really good example of these vertical lines. Now, when I'm shooting down on something, like onto it like that, you can't get the vertical line straight. And sometimes with like a table, you want to see the things on top of it, so you have to shoot downward. So if this was the camera, you've got to shoot down onto the table rather than straight onto it like this. So in this example, it's really simple. I'm not going to do enable lens correction because it removes the vignette from the 50mm or the 35. I can't remember what I shot it on. It's a 50mm. It removes the vignette, and I like the vignette. So for those that don't know, that's this little, you know, the little bit of vignette that you get in the corners there. Like when you take it off, the corners darken again. But I am going to do geometry correction. Let's see how it does automatically. So I'm just going to not level it, that wasn't quite right. I'm going to vertical it. Now you can see what happens there. It pulls all those lines that it can sense, all those, it pulls them straight. That kind of, to me, and probably other people who are into interior photographer, it brings peace to your eye because it's slightly twisted here. Whereas if I do that, you know, all of these circles and stuff are retained. They're still nice and natural, but it pulls the image in like that. Then we've just got some quick other edits to do up here. So I'll pull down the highlights, maybe lift the shadows a little bit, not too much. Then I'm going to be, you know, doing our little bit of a S-curve here, lifting that up. I want to make that quite extreme, I think, to really soften. You can see that's where all of our you know, all of our shadows are here, so I'm sort of lifting those up, bringing the black point from there up like this. Next, I'm just going to check the temperature. Yeah, that's fine. Saturation. I'm going to bring the actual vibrance down of this whole shot. Now outside, I'm pretty much happy with that exposure, but I do feel like maybe it could be a little bit more colorful, and rather than, you know, just grabbing the greens, I'm just going to, you know, literally color these in. Again, rough and ready. This kind of thing isn't noticeable in the final image, so I'm just not being too precise about it. I don't really care. It just means that I can, you know, warm up those greens a little bit, and it just makes it feel, because this is autumn right now, so it just gives them a little bit of, you know, a little bit of pop there. Now I have the original edit here. How does ours compare? Yeah, pretty close. That's the edit that I did, and for some reason there's a bit of a crop on it. I'm not sure why. So that's us now, and that is the edit that I did before. So you can see how I got to that. The main thing that's happening here, oh yeah, I need a little tiny bit of clarity on this one, I think. I tend to not go too far with clarity. Now, one thing I might just try is just lifting that whole exposure. So I want to keep the highlights down, but just want to lift the whole top bit. That kind of makes it feel like there's a bit more light coming in from the top, because without that, you can see it's a bit dark at the top. So I'm probably going to stick with that actually. So that's basically our final image there. Really subtle. You don't want to be doing too much. Just that little bit softens the whole image and makes it feel kind of silky. Okay, next one. Let's do one of these kind of ones. This image here. Let's do this here, because this is really simple. Okay. The main thing that's happening here, this rug is really, really bright. So the main thing that's happening with this image, again, just to soften it, is if we go to, so that's before, after the edit. So first thing I'm going to do, I don't really edit in order, by the way. I edit out of happiness. So the thing that I want to do first, I will just do that first. There is no illusion of process or non-chaos to my process at all. I'm not one of those kind of people. So we don't need to do any of this. We don't need to do any lens correction. That just doesn't do anything for us. The thing I need to do quite desperately is get these yellows and pull them down. There we go. That just desaturates the whole thing. Then I'm going to maybe add a tiny bit of contrast. Everything else is basically fine. I might just pull the highlights down. Just, you see here, this text, just want to get that to pop out a little bit. Do our normal S-curve. Again, quite extreme on the more lifestyle kind of stuff. Soften those whites. Go down to the clarity. Where is it? It's gone. There we go, just a pop of clarity there. Now what I could do is I could add a bit of a vignette to this one. Where is it? Effects. Here, somewhere around here. Yeah, there. You know, you could do that. I don't know. Seems a little bit, you know, 2015 to do that. I'm probably just going to keep it basically as it was, maybe a little tiny bit for fun. Okay, so that's our image. Before, after. Again, just the colors come down. It kind of makes it a bit warmer, a little bit sort of chocolatey almost. I'm not just saying that because there's chocolate in the photo. It does feel a little bit chocolatey. Anyway, now the important thing is here is taking the photo. You know, if we look at before, after. Okay, again, this is a 3-image exposure, so I'll show you those in a second. But the thing is that you want to make sure is when you take the photo, you want to make sure that all these lines are as straight as you can get. So you're not shooting up, you're not shooting down, you're shooting straight on at the thing that you want to shoot. So, you know, we'll look at these images here. So that is the normal exposure, that is the underexposure, and that is the overexposure. None of these will work. So if I was to edit this one, you can see I probably could pull some of it back. You know, if I was to do it like this, we're getting close, but you've got to watch out because, you know, this is going to start getting noisy. So it's good to do the 3 exposures if you can do that. And in the camera, sometimes I'll just go snap, change the exposure, snap, change it, snap, and sometimes I use the bracket mode. When it's really dark, I will use bracket mode with a timer, which means it will count down 2 seconds, then it will take 3 photos for me. The Sony cameras have that feature. You know, DM me if you want to know more about that, okay? So, here are our images, and those blended would end up looking something like, let's just save this edit as edit, and we'll get to the original. Those blended look like that. Now, there's no settings or anything applied to this, so straight away what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the highlights and I'm going to increase the shadows. Now we're kind of getting close. This is a lot like that first image, but we know that the image is much, much cleaner in the shadows. I would imagine here it's probably still pretty, you know, pretty noisy. It's not too bad actually, but we don't need that anyway. So I'm going to lift those shadows up. Already we've got pretty close just by highlights, shadows. Okay, now I'm going to go to colors and just have a look at what I've got here. So probably the first thing I want to do is look at the luminance of those oranges and just see what I've got. I'm going to reduce the saturation of it just a touch. The blues, again, I'm going to reduce the saturation, and it kind of takes that extreme feeling away from it. Like, you know, some people do the proper teal. I'm not really into that, so I'm just going to reduce the blue color, which has a similar effect, but you're not just tealing all your blues. Now, clarity here. We'll look at that afterwards. I think I do need a bit more color, so we'll look at adding a bit more color there. Now, the number one thing that I'm going to do here is look at all this stuff in the front. This is really, really distracting. So I'm going to grab a linear gradient and I'm going to pull it up from the bottom like that and just cover that section. I'm probably going to reduce the exposure, maybe up the contrast a little bit. But the main thing that I'm going to do is actually reduce the clarity to almost nothing. This makes it so you don't really notice that, and again, now that I've done that, I need to reduce the exposure just a little bit more. Okay, so we're getting close now. Now I'm going to do our little S-curve. This is kind of where the magic happens, really, in this little bit here. Reduce that down. I still feel like we do need a little bit more shadow in the top, so maybe what I'm going to do is just do a linear gradient in the sky like this, just to kind of match that there, and let's see, we just reduce exposure a tiny bit. Now, yeah, we're getting pretty close. Clarity, just a touch, and it just will kind of act as the contrast we maybe lost. Now what we can do is we can control the lights there basically with the highlights, and you might want to pull it all the way down. I don't know, I think probably all the way down, and then we will just look at that sky and maybe just lift it up a little bit. Let's go up to about there. And I think another thing I might just try is a radial gradient in the middle, just to make that look just a little bit brighter and to give a bit more presence. So now you can see the before and after. That radial filter is quite important. So again, if you look at all of these masks, they really pull your eye into the middle. And then if you look at the point curve, it kind of, that's where the magic happens really. You can see it softens and warms all these grass bits here. Now this wouldn't be there if it wasn't for my 3 exposures. I wouldn't be able to do that, and I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised that none of it's smudged. So there we go, before, after. That's basically our final image, and it's nice and sharp. Now if we just take a look at some of these other images, you know, for example here I can see that line is nice and straight, but it doesn't look to me like this one is. Maybe it is, it's just an illusion, but let's just have a little quick look at that. So if we go into here, I haven't got any correction on it, so I'm going to do vertical, and yeah, I was right. Now that looks a little bit more clean to me. I'm not going to bother telling you about the 3 exposures. I'm sure you've understood that by now. Again, if not, just shoot me a DM and we will chat through it. Whoops, never mind. Okay, so that is the 3 exposures. If you're not sure what that is, you know, those are the 3 exposures, and they blend together to make this. Now, while we are here, first thing I'm going to do, as before, linear gradient across here, probably to about there. Reduce the highlights, and that just brings back that there. I'm going to do the same over here, linear gradient over like that, and just lift the shadows just a little bit, probably to about there. That just balances the image just a little bit, just kind of gives us a even playing field. Now that we've done that, I'm going to reduce those blues coming in through the window like before, because that light, it just complicates the scene. So if I just reduce it a little bit, it means that our main color is kind of a warm orangey color, and I could think about boosting it. But the main issue that we've got, again, as I said before, I don't usually shoot a space with any lights on at all, but I had to in this case because it's just so dark, because all the light comes in from one side, so it creates a huge contrast. So our main problem area is this area down here. So again, I'm going to go here and I'm going to grab a radial gradient. I'm going to put that in probably like that. This gives us like quite a nice little fall off from here. Now I don't really want to do this with exposure because it kind of looks a little bit unrealistic. Whereas if I raise the shadows, it's a lot more subtle. But you can see there's quite a lot of orange in here. So I'm going to just reduce the temperature a little bit. I don't have to worry too much because I removed the blues, but I do have to consider that there's daylight back here. So if I was to really go for it, you know, that's going to go much bluer than here, and that's the real color of daylight. So reduce the temperature a little bit, and I'm going to desaturate it a little bit as well. Add a bit of contrast, and then maybe pull this in like that. And that just kind of makes it feel like there is an orange light there, so that's quite realistic that it's like that, but it does draw your eye away from it. So now that we've got that, let's just do before and after. You can see that it's kind of balancing off the room. I'd argue that this maybe is a little bit strong because you can kind of see it, but no one's going to really care. It might be that there's light coming in from this window. Right, let's just quickly do this. So we're going to do our S-curve just like before, and that just softens the shadows and softens the highlights. It's not really about creating contrast for me. This is about softening the image and giving it a little bit of class. Now if I feel like there's maybe a little bit of contrast missing from this area here now, so I could actually just add that back in. I don't want to darken it too much, but no, that's fine. I'm going to stop playing with that bit there because it's fine. Now can we boost the orange just a touch? Yeah, just giving it a little bit of extra orange and a bit of vibrance on here might just make it, I love it when these colors just really pop out. You could go for a really muted kind of moody tone, but you know, sometimes even if it's fun, the client goes, where are all the colors? So I think this is a happy medium between keeping it simple. That is too, sorry, that is too strong. So I'm going to pull the shadows down a bit, and just a little bit of exposure, and then clarity. There, that is making it feel a bit more realistic now. Okay, so that's before and after. So as I said, my process is quite rough and ready. I tend to just try and smash through images and then try and keep them consistent. So if we were to go to you know, our picked images here and look at them, this is the other way I do it. If I look at them here, you know, this is where I'll pick whether it's consistent or not. For example, I can see here that there's not quite enough highlight in this one. So I just jump into here and lift those highlights just a little bit. And if we go back to this view, I can see that those images kind of belong together now. So I hope you found that useful. I'll make a preset of the kind of clarity and point curve adjustment that I make on my photos. I'll make that available up on my website for free, so I'll drop a link in the description to that. And as I said, I focus on doing things quick and being able to sort of move around the photo as fast as I can without having to bring it into Photoshop and doing all sorts of complicated mechanics, because in all honesty, I just don't have time to do all that. I just like to make it look really good, try and get as much done in camera as possible, and then just enhance it with Lightroom rather than doing all sorts of little Photoshop tricks. Anyway, thanks very much, and I will see you in the next video.